actually paid him to say all of that. But what always amazes me is the fact that the reading seems to always tie in with what the speaker is going to talk about. And when David spoke earlier from Are You Connected, I thought, gosh, this is unbelievable. Now, I had no prior communication with David. He did not know what I was going to speak about today. I only sent him a small picture on WhatsApp of my introduction, which he read very nicely. And thank you so much, David. It really amazes me. I would like to ask you, the title of my speech today is, Have You Thanked It Today? Thanked what today? Well, I'm referring to this thing that David spoke about earlier, this thing here. It should be in here for most of us, our brain. Have you thanked your brain today? Okay, wonderful. Please raise your hand if you've heard the saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Raise your hand. Okay. Raise your hand again if you believe that. Oh, that's fantastic. Then I can actually sit down. The rest of my speech is meaningless. Being a member of the Johannesburg Magic Circle, I know that you can indeed teach an old dog new tricks. Just like you can teach a new dog old tricks and a new dog new tricks, you can teach an old dog new tricks and an old dog old tricks. So if you have been believing that old saying, you've been wrong, and you've been handicapping yourself, and you've been holding yourself back. Now, this is not my personal opinion. Nothing wrong with my personal opinion, but it's not my personal opinion. This is actually backed up by science, because the big buzzwords and the latest technology in neuroscience, two things called, one, neuroplasticity, and the second one, neurogenesis, back this up. That you can, at any age, learn new things and become a better, happier person. Now, I'm very aware whenever you talk about the brain, that it's a very complex, none of us really understand it. And when you talk about the brain, it's very difficult to get it across in a way that's meaningful, because a lot of the terminology flies over your head, it flies over my head, so I try and simplify it. But neuroplasticity refers to the ability of this magnificent brain to make new neural connections and eliminate old ones. What old ones? The old ones that no longer serve us. We want to get rid of them, and we want to adopt a new approach. It's the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming these new neural connections throughout life. From the womb to the tomb, throughout your entire life, you have this ability. It does not only exist when you're young, it exists the entire age. Please believe that. Neuroplasticity allows the neurons in the brain to compensate for injury and disease. So that normally means that if you injure your brain, another part of the brain will take over. Obviously, this is limited. If you suffer, God forbid, a serious brain injury, then yes, you may end up severely incapacitated. But brain rigidity? No. We are flexible. Our brains are adaptable. What is neurogenesis? Another exciting activity in the world. Neurogenesis is the birth of new neurons. How often have we been told, oh no, when you're born, you have all the neurons, billions of them, and as you get older, they all die off, and you get less and less and less, until you've got none left. How many of us have heard that? Quite a few. And that is also untrue. That is also untrue. Now, the main neurogenic zones that are being activated in the brain or being pursued in the brain are the hippocampal region. Now, the hippocampal region is responsible for memory and learning. And it's responsible for taking new information and putting it into short-term memory first, and then long-term memory thereafter, so that you can remember all this. And very often people with dementia will have damage to that part of the brain. And that is why they cannot remember new information. They're very apt at telling you and regaling you from 20, 30 years ago, but sadly they cannot remember maybe 20, 30 minutes ago. If we look at the brain, this part here, it's in green, it's the cerebellum. It accounts for about 10% of the brain total mass. And yet, it contains more neurons in that small section than the rest of the brain put together. Isn't that amazing? It's not amazing. It is amazing. Is it amazing? Yeah. Okay, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. 10% of your brain contains more neurons than the other 90%. Absolutely fantastic. What does the cerebellum do? A lot of things. It mainly is responsible for automatic movement, learning, and other cognitive functions. So, that's about as technical about the brain as I'm going to get. I've set the scene. I want you to engage in neuroplasticity, and I want you to subscribe to neurogenesis. How am I going to get you to do that? Because I don't want to bombard you with information. I don't want you to leave here and think, oh my gosh, I never knew that about my brain. What did he say again? I want us to have fun. So I've got a little game. Will you indulge me and engage with me in this little game? I'll show you what you should be doing. You see, what we really want to be doing in life is what we call whole brain thinking. Now, whole brain thinking means you use your entire brain and not just one half of the hemisphere. How often have you been labeled, oh, you're a left brain person. You'll be very good at working in the bank. Oh, you're a right brain person. You're so creative. That's a myth. That's a lie. Don't you let them label you either or. Let me tell you now, categorically, you are whole brained. And I'll show you why. I've got a little game. I'm going to show you 3 words. When I display the boards, I want you to shout out the words. Okay, quickly now. What does quickly mean? Fast. Okay, so don't look at them, because I know some of you are thinking, this is a trick. He won't fool me. I'll carefully look at the words, then I'll call them out. No, I'm going to show you the boards. You shout out the words, okay? Nod your heads if you understand. Wonderful. Here we go. Shout out the words. Once more, a little bit faster. Fantastic. This time I want you to ignore the words and shout out the colors quickly. Okay. Yes. Okay, let's do that once more. Ignore the words, shout out the colors. Quickly, go. Okay, did any of you find that difficult? Any of you? Raise your hand. Okay. Did any of you find it uncomfortable? Raise your hand. If you found it uncomfortable, you're getting there. So keep going, Pat. Who found it enjoyable? You're already there. Thank you. Wonderful. Now, what is happening there? Well, the left side of your brain is clearly seeing the word. Your right side of the brain is seeing the color. The instruction was to ignore the word and to mention the color. Let me give you another quick example. Raise your right hand, legs up. Make a little gun. Go bang, bang, bang. I didn't hear one bang, bang, bang. Okay, let's start again. Please follow the instructions. Raise your right hand. Make a little gun. Say bang, bang, bang. Come, guys, this is how tame. We've all got 9mm here. Bang, bang, bang. Make a circle. And very, very quickly place a circle on your chin. Now, this is your chin. Okay? Now, I'm not trying to fool you. That just proves that most of us are more influenced by what we see than by what we hear. Okay. So, how are we going to involve ourselves in this new way of thinking? How are we going to stimulate our brains? How are we going to change 30, maybe 40 years of conditioning? It's very, very simple. Engage. Here's the first thing. Engage in new challenges and develop yourself. What do I mean by that? Well, when faced with something that seems unfamiliar or difficult, go for it. Dive in. Attempt to master a new technique, a new language, a new computer program. a new hobby, a new physical activity. Engage in new things. Think differently. Think in new ways. Always try and get something that involves both hemispheres at the same time. And what do you think that might be? Drumming, yes, absolutely. Drumming is so hypnotic. Learning to play a musical instrument, guitar, drums, piano, anything else? A new language? Anything else? Singing. Yeah, okay, singing. Right. Remember, our left hemisphere reads words sequentially from left to right, doesn't it? Okay, thank you, Pat. Thank you. While the right side of our brain is decoding these words. So at all the time we are using both hemispheres. And I want you to remind yourself of that. The right side of our brain, this part here, allows us to see many things at once. And it allows us to create a holistic picture. And all this is coming from the details that have been gathered from the left side of the brain. Now, the left side of the brain will tell you all about the problems. And if you dwell on that, that's where you'll stay. But if you allow your right side of the brain to come into the picture, your right side of the brain will present new ways of tackling those seemingly insurmountable problems. So engage in the right hemisphere. Think, dream, imagine a better future. And then, of course, implement it. We don't want to be daydreaming all day. The night cometh, and we have to start doing things. Eh, Glenn? The night cometh when no man can work. So, by learning and practicing these activities that force you, for the first time, perhaps a long time, to actually engage both hemispheres, you become more adept at whole brain thinking. And this thing in here will thank you for that. Now, is that not amazing? Somebody just say yes. Yes. Are you with me, sir? Thank you. Everybody say yes. Yes. Oh, thank you so much. The other thing I want you to do is to practice focused attention. Now, we don't have 5 senses for nothing. Some of us have more, but I'm going to be just average and say we've all got 5. Now, we don't have these 5 senses for nothing. They're supposed to be used. And you're supposed to use them in everywhere that you are. So what does that mean? Well, it means start to observe and not just see things. What are you seeing? Observe it. What does it mean to you? Listen. Don't just hear. Right now we're hearing maybe hundreds, thousands of sounds, but I'm really hoping and praying that you're all listening just to me. So start to listen and not just hear. Taste. Begin to taste things. Savor the flavor of things. Smell. When you smell, dwell on the aroma. Feel. Begin to feel things. Don't just touch. Add much to touch. Will you do that? Create focused attention. When you focus your attention on any objects, events, or information or conversations, neuroplasticity and neurogenesis is heightened, believe it or not. And focused attention is in great contrast to listening with one ear and thinking about other things. In other words, be wholly present in the now. What is the most important time? It's supposed to be the now. Where do most of us find ourselves? Anywhere but the now. You ever wondered why? Ever wondered why? Well, the now can be a brutal place, and your brain doesn't like the now, so it likes to escape. And your brain can only escape to one of 2 places: the past, where you've been, and the future, where you think or where you want to, or where you fantasize that you're going to go. But I'm asking you to think a little bit and concentrate a little bit and focus in the... Somebody say, thank you, Marissa. Focus in the now. A great way to create whole brain thinking. If this is too difficult, I like to simplify things. And if this is too difficult for you, I want you to imagine, if you can, being able to walk down the middle of the two hemispheres. If you were able to do that, you'd find something called the corpus callosum. And that is millions, maybe billions, of telephone lines that connect the right side of the brain with the left side. And what you do to promote whole brain thinking is you imagine walking down the two hemispheres and you're pulling these telephone lines from the left side over into the right. And you actually cross your arms over. And you pull the ones on the right over to the left as you walk down. And you can actually do this out in your garden by walking from one end of your garden to the other, and each time you're pulling the left side into the brain over into the right, and the right side over into the left. And when first you do that, Peter, you might feel slightly foolish. You might feel, oh, this is silly. I can promise you, Tony, by the third time you do this, you're going to feel different. Things are going to change. One thing that you will notice that changes is your balance. If you have any balance difficulties or issues, amazingly, that seems to fall into place. You seem to be grounded. You seem to be reminded that you have these two offs, and now they're functioning as one. So will you do that little technique? Will you? And if anybody wants it, I've got it written in detail. Just speak to me afterwards and I'll email it to you. Because I do understand I'm fleetingly going over this today and not giving you much time to absorb it or to think about it. So I do understand that. The other thing I want you to do is to explore everything. And I mean everything. With a childlike wonder. Become a little child again. Doesn't the Bible say to us that you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven unless you become as a... Someone say little child? Thank you. You know, we're all too much in a hurry to grow up. We want to become serious, and the more serious we get, the better. I say the opposite. Time to be less serious and more childlike. Explore everything about your world. You know what? Exploration is an attitude towards experiencing one's environment. Rather than just moving from A to B, stop. Explore and investigate your surroundings. For example, when walking from one room of your house to the other, we seem to be in a rush. And sometimes we are in so much of a rush. We get to the other room, we think, oh, fiddlesticks, what was I coming here for? Yes, that table knows, that seat there knows what I'm talking about. And that's because you are disengaging from your surroundings rather than engaging. And people often blame this on their memory. And it is not your memory that's causing this problem. It's the fact that you're in far too much of a rush. So what am I suggesting that you do? I'm suggesting that you take your time. You look down at the floor that you're standing on. And maybe for the first time, you'll notice the design on your carpet. If you're barefoot, maybe you ask yourself, how does that feel? Like walking on a sandy beach. You all know how that feels. Look at the walls. What's hanging on these walls? Look at all these artifacts. Even look up at the ceiling. And I promise you, even though you may have lived in your house for 10 or 20 years, you will notice things that you haven't seen before. If you like to go out, if you like to walk or cycle for exercise, again, begin to notice what's around you. If you meet people, smile at them, greet them. Become interested. Because if you do that, you'll find those people do the same back to you. Anybody like to travel? I know Nabaweya does, yeah. Have you ever noticed when you travel that usually at the end of the day you're kind of exhausted? Anybody? And you're also very much excited. Have you ever wondered why? Have you ever wondered why? You see, traveling challenges you. It forces you to absorb a lot more information than what you would normally do if you were living in your normal abode. So next time you travel, Nabawe, and I know Nabawe does this, adopt the customs and practices of that new place and enjoy your journey. Have a lot of fun. If you want to, you can explore historical sites, different religious centers, museums, take guided tours, all that sort of nice thing. And just remember to focus your attention on exploring and to focus your attention on the now. So, if we move on to this neurogenesis thing, what I'm about to say next normally makes people say, oh no, that's it, stop. I'm not doing that. One of the best ways to improve and to really promote the neurogenesis part of this chat within yourself is that word that begins with an E. It has an X in it. Doesn't have an S, it does have an S. Oops. The word is exercise. Now people say, oh no, you've lost me now. That's it, forget it. Well, they say the best exercises to promote neurogenesis are the cardiovascular exercises, such as running, cycling, interval training, CrossFit, that sort of thing. But there's another one. Begins with a Y.
I don't know, you tell me.
That one, yeah. Yoga. Yoga. And yoga is not too physically, well, it is, but it's not in the cardiovascular stage. So you can engage in the gentle exercise of yoga, and you'll be doing your brain a big, big favor. Yoga is a most effective way of boosting neurogenesis. And of course, we all are aware of the many benefits associated with regular exercise. We all know that. The other thing that you can look at is your diet. They're blaming, when we look at diets, they're blaming sugar more and more for many ailments and illnesses. And sugar does interfere with our brain. Too much can be a bad thing. You don't have to cut it out altogether. No puffing and panting with the banting. No. You can cut down on the sugar intake. And once again, your brain will thank you. So you might want to bear that in mind. Another thing you might want to consider, if this was a real brain, I wouldn't be able to hold it like this because it would fall apart. As such, it's very slippery, it would fall apart. But at 60%, they say it's 60% fat. And yet for many years we've been told, oh, fat is the enemy. Fat is not the enemy. Once again, we have good fats and bad fats. And you might consider adding some good fat into your diet. And again, your brain will thank you for that. What kind of fat am I talking about? Well, the omega-3 fatty acids and things like that. Oily fish such as mackerel, or what's the other one? Pilchards. Blueberries, green tea. Now there's a nice thing, green tea. And the spice turmeric. They say that is very, very good. There's also one other thing that we can do to promote neuroplasticity, to promote neurogenesis. What do you think that might be? I'll give you a clue. It's every spiritualist's favorite thing they love to do. Begins with an M.
Meditate.
Who said meditate? Thank you. Thank you. Meditation. Can you believe it? And don't we all meditate? I say to people that if you've got time, only if you've got time, you should meditate at least once a day. And if you're busy and you have no time, you better make sure you meditate 3 times a day. That's when you need meditation more, when you're busy. There's more and more scientific evidence. Now, I'm not scientifically minded because science can't prove everything. But there's more and more, evidence from the scientific world that is proving beyond a shadow of a doubt what we have all known for years. And that is that meditation is good for us. From a brain perspective, it increases the grey matter density in a number of brain regions, and again, especially the hippocampal region, which once again is responsible for taking new information from the working memory to short-term to long-term memory. And of course, as we all know, doesn't meditation make us feel good? Yeah. Makes you feel calm, doesn't it? The main enemies of your brain, is toxins. So if you're a smoker, you ought to consider stopping. Quickly followed by the other one, alcohol. All your favorite things. Okay, toxins, brain injury, that's a big one. Stress. And what I'd like to chat about are thinking. I really believe our thinking kills our brains more than anything else. Our thinking, we have to be very, very careful, because your thinking becomes your thoughts, becomes your words, becomes your actions, becomes your deeds. And it doesn't matter how talented or what you've accomplished. Doesn't matter. There are certain phrases that you might be using that you must stop using, because you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're cancelling out any kind of neuroplasticity and neurogenesis in your system. And these sayings, some of you might have heard them, although I'm willing to bet none of us use them, because we're far too smart, aren't we? Somebody say, yes. I like a little bit of interactivity. You might have guessed that by now. You know, when I do entertainment, it's all interactivity. I can't do it on my own. I need people from the audience to join me up on the stage. I don't need that today, but I do like to just know that you're with me. Okay, so interactivity is the key. The sayings that I want you to stop saying is this one. And by the way, there's many, many of them, but I selected these ones. This is the way it's always been done. Oh, please, anybody said that recently? You've got to stop saying that, especially in today's age. You know, the technology-fueled change that we're all experiencing today, within 3 to 6 months, the norm can be outdated. When you say that this is the way it's always been, it makes you sound lazy. It makes you sound resistant to change. And if your boss hears you saying that, he might wonder why you haven't even tried to improve things on your own. So if you really are doing the things the way they've always been done, if there's no better way, fine. But if there is a better way, you might want to consider changing. It's not my fault. Anybody use that one? It's not my fault. Well, it's never a good idea. It's never, ever a good idea to cast blame. You should be accountable. If you had any role at all, no matter how small, in whatever that went wrong or whatever, own it. Become accountable. Stick to the facts and let other people draw their own conclusion. The moment you start pointing fingers and blaming other people, and it's not my fault, you just lower yourself in everybody's eyes. Who's ever said, I can't? Yeah. You know, when they tell me that they can't, what they're telling me is that they won't. I know people can, and I'll find a way of getting them to do it. But when they say I can't, it's not my fault. Twisted sister, really is. I know you can, Peter. I'll just get you to do it. So banish that one too. Please, please, please. And another one that I hear a lot, and it normally comes from the victim mentality, it's not fair. Life's unfair. Who knows that one? Who's heard that one? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Everybody, every single one of us knows that life's unfair. And saying that it's not fair suggests that you think it should be fair. And that makes you look naive. It makes you look immature. And of course, it's keeping your brain in this faulty way of thinking that life should be fair. Life's not fair. Ask any 2-year-old, they'll tell you. They know already. We've just forgotten it. We need to remember it. The other one is I'll try. Oh, that's like swearing to me. When I ask you to do something and you say you'll try, I say, no, leave it. I'll do it myself. Can you imagine going to the dentist with toothache? And the dentist said, sit on the chair or try and fix it. You'd run out of there. I don't even need to ask you what you do. I know. You'd run out of there. And yet, have you ever asked yourself why? Why will I not accept try from the dentist? I'm going to tell you why. And I don't even know your dentist, but once again, this is ingrained in everything. You see, you have a very high expectation of your dentist. But let me remind you, he's a third party in your life. What does that mean? Well, I'm willing to bet not one of you ever phone your dentist to see how he is. I'm willing to bet not one of you ever send him a birthday card, a Christmas card, or any kind of card. But when you've got toothache, you go there with a high expectation that he can fix it. And you wouldn't let him try anything. So what I'm saying to you today, if you're going to continue having high expectations from third parties in your life, then it's high time you had a high expectation of yourself for yourself. Will you do that? You'll be very pleased to know I've come to my closing. And in closing, I'd just like to ask you, have you thanked it today? Have you thanked your marvelous brain today? Be even reminded as spiritualists that we interpret most of our spiritual experiences through this device. Have you thanked it today? I want to suggest to you, going forward, tonight, as you retire, you thank your brain for the wonderful day that you've enjoyed on this beautiful earth. When you wake up tomorrow morning, and every single one of you are going to wake up tomorrow morning, Peter, I want you, before you do anything, before you look out the window to see what kind of day it is, before you think of anything, you thank once again this wonderful device, your brain. Will you do that?
Yes.
I want to hear a resounding yes, then I'll sit down, I promise.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Max, I'm saying Matt. And guys, can we just thank Max for that empowerment, moving speech? Because with that, we need to give thanks